What if I told you the greatest danger to humanity isn't evil? Not hatred, not violence, not corruption, but something far more subtle and far more pervasive: stupidity. Ever wonder why people ignore plain truths, even when evidence is staring them in the face? Why do they follow crowds, even when those crowds are rushing toward collapse? Why does manipulation thrive while reason is left behind? History shows us again and again, societies don't just fall because of tyrants. They fall when people stop thinking. The German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer understood this better than most. Living through one of the darkest periods in history, he concluded that stupidity, not malice, was the true enemy of civilization. Why? Because evil can be unmasked, lies can be challenged, but a mind that refuses to think is beyond reach. Stupidity isn't just ignorance. It's a conscious decision to reject understanding. It's when certainty replaces curiosity and bias becomes gospel. In such a world, truth becomes irrelevant. Critical thought, obsolete. Bonhoeffer was no ordinary thinker. By 21, he had a doctorate in theology. By 24, he was lecturing in universities. Yet, when the Nazis rose to power, he saw something that terrified him more than dictatorship. He saw intellectual surrender. The thinkers of Germany, the scientists, philosophers, even clergy, didn't resist. They complied, not out of hate, but because they had stopped thinking for themselves. He watched friends, neighbors, fellow citizens, once rational, once moral, become blind followers. The Nazi regime didn't thrive on hatred alone. It thrived on passive obedience, in silence, on contagious, unchecked stupidity. Bonhoeffer refused to stay silent. While most pastors obeyed, he called Hitler the Antichrist. He risked everything to smuggle Jews out of Germany, joining a resistance network bent on dismantling the regime from within. In 1943, he was arrested. For 2 years, he sat in a prison cell, reflecting on how an entire nation lost its moral compass. And from that cell, he wrote something chilling. The greatest threat to humanity is not evil. It is stupidity. Why? Because stupidity doesn't look like a threat. It hides in the plain sight, behind confidence, conformity, and comfort. It thrives in societies where media replaces thinking, where responsibility is outsourced, and where questioning is frowned upon. And this isn't just history, this is now. Unlike evil, which can be confronted with courage, stupidity builds a wall. It shuts down thought, rejects nuance, and silences dissent. It's not about what people don't know, it's that they don't want to know. Stupidity is willful blindness, and worst of all, it spreads. Bonhoeffer saw it in Nazi Germany. The atrocities of that era weren't carried out by monsters. They were committed by ordinary people who simply stopped asking questions. Stupidity made them obedient. It numbed their moral instincts, and it made propaganda flourish. He also observed something else, something even more disturbing. Power breeds stupidity. The more influence people gain, the less likely they are to question themselves. Surrounded by yes men, shielded from criticism, they confuse obedience with wisdom. At that point, stupidity becomes systemic. It's no longer just a personal flaw, it's a social force, a force that crushes complexity, celebrates ignorance, and feeds manipulation. Years later, political philosopher Hannah Arendt echoed Bonhoeffer's fears. When she studied Adolf Eichmann, one of the architects of the Holocaust, she didn't find a monster. She found a man following orders, a man who never stopped to think. Arendt coined the term the banality of evil, A reminder that the worst crimes aren't always committed by psychopaths, but by people who refuse to think. This is the terrifying part. Evil doesn't always look like hate. Sometimes it looks like obedience. Philosopher Bertrand Russell warned of this too. He saw a world where ignorance was rewarded and intelligence punished, where easy answers drowned out deep thought, where certainty replaced humility. And in today's world, that warning feels more urgent than ever. Simplified narratives dominate. Complex issues, climate change, inequality, war, are reduced to hashtags and talking points. Social media rewards emotional outrage, not thoughtful analysis. It's easier to believe what feels good than to wrestle with what's true. This is intellectual laziness, and it's being engineered. People aren't stupid by accident. They're being trained to be. Think about it. Why do people believe lies that have been debunked over and over? Why do they trust power without question? Why do they mock those who think differently? It's not because they can't think. It's because they've been conditioned not to. Psychological traps make us resist logic. Cognitive dissonance keeps us loyal to lies that feel comfortable. Authority bias makes us trust leaders blindly, even when history screams at us not to. Social conformity punishes anyone who dares to question the herd. This is how control works, not through brute force, but through quiet, invisible pressure. In the past, it was state propaganda. Today, it's social algorithms, corporate news, and influencer narratives. People think they're thinking for themselves, but their choices are being shaped by forces they can't even see. You don't have to force people to be stupid. You just have to make stupidity feel safe, and thinking feels dangerous. And the system is built to do exactly that. Question authority? You're labeled a conspiracy theorist. Challenge the mainstream? You're discredited. Refuse to conform? You're mocked or canceled. Meanwhile, blind obedience is rewarded with comfort, security, and the illusion of virtue. This is the trap. And no, the world isn't suffering from a lack of intelligence. It's suffering from a lack of courage. So how do we fight back? By reclaiming our minds, by choosing to think critically, especially when it's hard. That means questioning authority, challenging your own beliefs, surrounding yourself with voices that don't just confirm what you already think. It means embracing discomfort, accepting that you don't have all the answers, staying curious, even when certainty is easier. Bonhoeffer, Arendt, Russell. They all pointed to the same truth. Stupidity is a threat we must actively resist. And it starts with each of us, not the system, not the media, United States. Because when we give up our responsibility to think, we surrender the one thing that makes us truly free. So, if you're ready to reclaim your mind, subscribe to my channel, The Unseen Psyche. The Unseen Psyche is about helping you break free from the psychological traps shaping your thoughts and decisions. Drop a comment. What's the most dangerous example of mass stupidity you've seen recently? Let's talk about it. Stay aware. Stay skeptical. Stay awake.